Hi, we're here in Lindenhurst Village, New York. We're here at W.A. Meadwerks. We're here to meet with Roger, who's the owner of W.A. Meadwerks. While the history of wine dates back thousands of years, historians point to another beverage as being the first alcoholic drink, mead. A fermented beverage made of honey, water, and yeast. It's also called honey wine. Join me as we take a look inside this unique experience, and let's see how we make mead wine. I'm James Webster. This is Owners and Operators. Roger, thanks for having us here today.
Thank you.
Showing us, or introducing us at least to the mead wine making process.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate that. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you got started in mead wine making.
Sure. So I was introduced to mead 4 years ago at a local brewery. Was very intrigued by the product, had several tastings of the product, and was thoroughly hooked. And then decided that it was time for me to change my beer brewing hobby into a mead brewing hobby.
I do like to, in preparation for interviews, do a little bit of research, especially when I don't have much knowledge on. I saw that mead was or mead wine was the first alcoholic drink.
Yes.
Believed to. Interesting. So, as we've talked about before and off camera, Owners and Operators likes to get behind the scenes of businesses to really see, I feel at least, that there's a million business owner interviews out there and people talking about different areas of business. But what I like to do is get behind the scenes and understand what goes into that business and what makes it run. And I love getting into interesting businesses. It's just kind of been a passion of mine since a young age to understand how things work.
Sure.
So that's where Owners and Operators stemmed from. From start to finish, how long does the process of making the mead take?
So from start to finish, it depends on the style of mead that we're making. So if we're making a draft mead or a session mead, which is under 7%, generally it's 3 to 4 weeks from the time we start to pitch to glass. So from the time we pitch the yeast to the time we pour it in a glass. If it's a more traditional mead, like a wine, higher alcohol requires a little more TLC, and the sweet spot for that is around 14 weeks.
So at any given moment, you have batches that are in process?
Various stages, yeah. So different product styles and different stages of their process.
So Roger, walk us through what it goes into making the mead that we're tasting here today.
So it's actually a very simple process. We start with a certain volume of water, and then we begin to add honey into that, creating a whirlpool to blend that. With any alcoholic beverage, you're looking for a certain amount of sugar in your solution that will convert into alcohol. So depending upon how much alcohol you want, will dictate how much sugar you have in that solution. Once we get to that point, we'll add fruit juices or whole fruit. We'll move it into a fermentation tank, and then we'll throw yeast in there, and off it goes.
And then at that point, it's where it's going to wait the 10 weeks, 14 weeks, or whatever.
It'll be either 3 weeks or 14 weeks, whatever style we're making. It does get a little care in the beginning because the honey is devoid of all nutrients for the yeast. So we use an organic nitrogen to help the yeast go along and make happy alcohol, and not the fusel alcohols that you find in like moonshines and some of those backroom gins and stuff. And then if you treat your yeast nice, they make really good alcohol, and then in 3 weeks or 12 weeks you have a really nice product.
Yeast is like something that we make when we made bread and different things it's a living organism, right?
Yes, and its job is to convert sugar. So it usually gives off alcohol and CO2. The CO2 we let blow off, and then with the alcohol is what we capture in the solution. There's different kinds of yeast. We use wine yeast primarily,
Okay.
but there's wine yeasts that will give off certain fruit characteristics or enhance certain fruit characteristics for red fruits or stone fruits versus berries like raspberries and blueberries. So it's part art, part science.
Sure.
The science is the actual chemistry that we're doing to balance those things, and then the art is getting the right yeast with the right fruit with the right honey, because we use 8 different varieties of honey in the products that we make.
Where do you get your honey from?
So we source our honey from 2 distributors domestically, but the honey sources are anywhere from Florida, Mexico, Brazil, Australia. The hardest part, I think, is getting that marriage of fruit and honey and yeast. And once you find that combination that's pleasing for the community, then you've hit a home run. There's been several times where we've made batches that were like, yeah, no, this can't go on the shelf. And trial and error. You find that out. But that's probably the hardest part.
And talk about the equipment that's used to make the mead.
So it's conventional wine tanks. It ends there essentially, because after that it becomes more like a beer. So we use basic brewery tanks to kind of condition the product once it's done fermenting, and then we'll run it through filters, clear the product, and then we either bottle it or we can it like a beer.
So what was the original vision for WA Meadwerks, and has that changed?
The original vision, and the vision still is that we make mead for the community. We don't make mead for competition due to some of the nuances that you need to do to establish a competition mead.
How often are different flavors created?
Flavors are brought to us sometimes. People will sit in the tasting room and like, oh, have you ever made a watermelon mint mead? And we're like, no, it's intriguing. Let's see if we can do that. Generally, when people come into the tasting room, they'll do a flight. And our staff, and myself included, we're always, prompting and poking and trying to find out, well, what did you like about this? What didn't you like about this? And then we use that feedback, and that's what drives me in the production space in terms of, do I make sweeter meads? Do I make drier meads?
So you really do pull on the community to
Absolutely.
get your ideas, and,
Yep.
and yeah, well, that makes sense, because that's who's buying the product too.
Right.
Talk a little bit about the mead that I just tasted. Where did that come from?
So you had a version of our paralyzer, which is an aronia berry mead, also known as a chokeberry. It grows in the Midwest. It was the only fruit that we were able to get at the beginning of COVID. So we were kind of forced our hand into making that. It was a great product. We made it a second time, and then we took 15 gallons of it and put it into a bourbon barrel that had a Negroni cocktail aged in it.
Roger, outside of, well, it might even be part of it, but the business itself, what do you see as the hardest part of running your business?
The hardest part of the business right now is educating people on what the product is.
Tell me something about WA Meadwerks that even after watching this, that most or even after coming to your establishment, most people still might not know.
What they might not know is the amount of work that goes into actually running an alcohol manufacturing business. There's regulations in every industry, but with alcohol, it's very specific and very unique to the product that you're making. So what we do in wine is different than spirits, it's different than beer, it's even different than cider. Then there's the federal level, and then there's the state level. So there's a lot of uniqueness and a lot of hours spent going over regulations and taxes and so on.
What do you feel is next for WA Meadwerks?
The next step for Meadwerks is to get out into the market and grow our market, our footprint, and educate people on what the product is and both ends of the product. It's a healthy product, It's all natural. We don't use any artificial flavors. Everything is honey, fruit juice, and that's basically it.
Thanks for joining us today at WA Meadwerks. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and look forward to bringing you inside more interesting businesses just like this. And if you're interested in having owners and operators showcase your business, please comment below and we will be in touch. Until next time.